Christy J with Stitchin Heaven, and welcome back to Schoolhouse Dash. This week we are actually going to do the pinwheel block. It's really exciting because you're going to do a lot of half square triangles. So this is a technique you will use all the way through your quilting life, your quilting adventure. So you'll get a lot of practice this week. Don't worry if they're not perfect. You just keep working on it, but this is a skill. This is kind of a skill builder quilt, so this is where we're going with it. But the pinwheel is very fun. Again, half square triangles. You will master it. Be sure that you post your blocks in the album on the Facebook page, and you'll want to do a hashtag Schoolhouse Dash, and that way Anita and I get the alert that you've actually posted. And if you will hit the little bell on the bottom of this video, you will actually get notifications when we post new videos. So hope you enjoy the pinwheel block with Mitzi Red. Thanks so much.
All right, next up on the list of these fabulous blocks for the Schoolhouse Dash quilt is going to be the pinwheel. Now, again, very traditional block, easy to do. You're going to be doing a lot of repeat steps with this, so we're going to take you through it really easy but really quick, so you can put together these beautiful blocks. Now, in the quilt itself, we've got our pinwheels are here, and let's see, we got one right here. So we're already on the side pieces for the pinwheels. So it is normally traditionally called a pinwheel because the center makes you think the pinwheel's blowing in the air out there. And then it's nicely offset with the rest of these beautiful island batiks. My favorite being the ocean, and then we're coming out with, let's see, we're going pool on that one. So we've got the ocean, the pool, I've got bluebird and icicle. So the colors really help to offset and make that design. So I do love how that one turned out, and it gives you a lot of options on finishing when you get ready to get to that stage also. So let me show you how it's going to be done, because again, we're making half square triangles once again. So very easy, very simple. You've already probably done this before, and so we're just going to continue on that process. The difference is we're working with a smaller size block. But on this one, the cuts are all the same size. It's just a matter of the 4 different color of your fabrics that you're going to be using. But doing the exact same thing as far as, like I said, drawing off that center diagonal, stitching the 1/4 inch on each side of that, cutting down that diagonal again, and pressing. What's going to come really important though is when we get ready to put the block all together, you're going to need to pay close attention to laying out those colors, because it's really easy to get them twist and turn. So let me show you some of the tips that I use to make sure I'm definitely lined up and going the right way. So first off, I'm going to take my icicle and my bluebird, and I'm going to draw my lines on the icicle. And for this one, because we're using smaller pieces, I'm using a smaller ruler as well. These are the great Stitchin Heaven rulers. They're creative grids, also my favorites, but you can definitely get them there in the shop or order them in. And what I'm going to do is, again, I'm taking my sew line pen, I'm making sure I'm lined up from corner to corner, right on those tips there, and I'm going to draw my diagonal line. Okay. Now you do this for 2 of them for each block. You've got a total of 2 blocks that are going into your quilt. And then I'm going to go ahead and show you also, I'm going to do the same, because while the icicle and let me grab one of my bluebird are going to go together, and I'll go ahead and line them up. Okay. We're also going to do the same when it comes to with the pool and with the ocean. This should be a pool and an ocean going together, right? Lots of great watercolors. So I'm going to go ahead and draw this on my pool. It's going to be easier to see for me on this one because my pen is a dark color ink when it comes out. So if I put that on my ocean, it's not going to show up as easy. And then I'll just go ahead and put them together. Now the nice thing about this is the stitching part goes together super fast. So I'm going to show you what we're going to do on that. It's the same way as with, most half square triangles. Make sure my fabrics are lined up. I'm going to drop my foot in here. It's going to go, my foot for my 1/4 inch is going to go right on that diagonal line I just drew. And I'm going to feed it straight on down. And then because I'm using the presser foot lift on my machine, it's going to lift my foot up so I can very easily start tucking in this next fabric. And the nice thing is, what I would recommend doing is go ahead and draw all your diagonal lines, put the pieces together, and then just start doing exactly what I'm doing. Just start feeding it through. And you're gonna have multiple ones you're gonna be doing. I'm only doing these just because of the fact that we're gonna make quick, and I've already prepped some ahead of time for you. But I wanna show you for sure how you do it if you're not sure on how to make those half square triangles. Now you see I just flip my fabric around. They're still tied together with the little short bit of thread between the two. And then I'm gonna go on the other side. Okay, let me just trim these. I'm just gonna do these two right now, to show you kind of how they line up. So I've just clipped my threads, and you can see down the center, now this is the unmarked side, but you can definitely see my stitch lines. So we'll be able to cut right down that center, which is right where my marking was. So let me grab my bigger scissors. You can use scissors, you can use rotary cutter for this, whatever you got close by. I find myself faster with scissors sometime than grabbing the rotary cutter and ruler and make sure I'm all lined up perfect. Okay. And then of course, as you do these, you're gonna wanna go ahead and get out your iron. I'll make sure it's nice and hot there still. And we're gonna, again, press to the dark side. So when you look at your two fabric groupings, the icicle and the bluebird, I'm gonna press to my bluebird. And then on the ocean and the pool, I'm gonna press to the ocean. It's my darker color. And again, I try to always stick with the press to the dark side. You know, there are times I have to go against that, and that's okay. When that comes, you know, when I really need things to tuck in and line up really nice and tight. So nothing wrong with that if you have to go, you know, the opposite way for any reason. It's not the end of the world. Nobody's gonna come get you for breaking the quilter rule. It's your quilt, have fun with it. So I'm gonna do my last one here. And like I said, I've already got the other ones already done for one of the blocks. So I'm gonna show you that here in just a second. But to help you reduce that bulk in your seams, the one thing I definitely want you to do is to grab you a small pair of scissors or snips and cut off those little dog ear pieces. We don't need them, and all they do is gonna add more bulk in there. So you can see I went from with the little dog ears to with them off. There's no reason for them to stay on there, and you can just toss those little corner pieces out. All they do, if you leave them in there, it adds just more bulk, more layers when you get to those corners, and it's not worth having them in there. They can make quite the headache in trying to get things nice and smooth. So toss those. All right, so I've already gone ahead and made up enough for one block, so I'm gonna show you kind of getting that set up. Now, I always demo, in a sense, my blocks and my fabrics on my Martelli rotating mat. This is our quilter's mat, and I absolutely love it because it lets me look at it and lay it all out. And then I've got it right here by my machine, and I can go ahead and take care of it as we feed through. But I'm also gonna be sure to keep my pattern close by because I need to reference back to that. It's really easy to get some of those little blocks flipped going the wrong direction. So do keep that in mind. Now, I start building out from my center, and you can start on the first row whichever way you like is perfectly fine. But what I'm going to do is the first thing I'm going to build out is my pinwheel, and that's going to be the bluebird with the icicle is where I'm going with that. So I've got my pinwheel started. Okay, now I'm going to move this up because when I'm laying this out, it's actually going to probably be bigger than my mat is. It's going to drape over, but that's all going to change once I go ahead and start to stitching, because remember, we're going to be able to save space when we take down that 1/4 inch. So it looks really big, it does come down to size. All right, and then I start kind of just literally building out from there. Now what I'm building now is I'm going with my darker color, and that's going to be those nice points on the outside in the middles. And this is why it's always good to keep your pattern close by, so you can take a peek to see where everything lays out. Right. And last but not least, I've got my corners. Now this is going to push that ocean color out, so it gives that nice triangular designs all the way around, making those diamond shapes. All right, 2 more pieces in. And see, by having it sitting here beside me, I can easily, as I start going down these rows to make the block, I can make sure everything is lining up perfectly. So in that sense, I've got that already lined up, ready to go. I've got my pinwheel in the center. I've got my shapes building out around it. So this one is a 16 pieces that make this block. So I'm going 4 across. There's 4 total rows that we're going to make. So what I'm going to do now is I will take those individual ones, and all you're going to do is start putting them together. If you need to use pins, feel free to use pins. They're kind of smaller, so I'm not going to. But do whatever you need to do to hold them together. It's perfectly fine. The nice thing about these Allen batiks is batiks kind of hold themselves together nicely, and I love that about it because I don't have to use many pins. Okay. And then I'm just going to start sewing these together. Now, pick how you like to do it. I actually like to do it 2 by 2s when I've got this many small pieces. So I'm going to do my 2 pieces that go there, and then I'm going to go to my next 2 pieces. And I'm going to do these all the way across, and then I'm going to start putting the 2 to the 2. So let me kind of show you real quick what I'm going to do to make that happen. And I'll just show you on this first row. Okay. All right, so I've got 2 by 2s. I've got here on the first row, and I'm going to put them together. Now on this one, I want to make sure I'm lining up my seam lines. So I've got my stitch lines there, my seams, and I'm really looking to make that really good point up there. Now, this is one of those moments where I will put a pin in it because I want to make sure everything holds together nicely, and I usually put it right there in the center just to make sure I've got a real nice line going all the way across. And I'm going to go ahead and start from the top. When I get to my pin, I'm going to go ahead and pull it, slow down, because I definitely do not want to stitch over my pins. Okay, I'm going to cut that. All right, and so that gives me those nice points. And you see above that ocean, I've got right about a 1/4 inch up there. So once I come in and get ready to put it into my blocks, it's going to leave me some really nice points on those corners, so you don't lose your point of your corner. So I'm going to go ahead and complete these rows. You're going to do each row exactly the same, and when we come back, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to put those rows together and make this gorgeous block. Be right back with you. Okay, hopefully by now you've got all of your pieces together ready and your rows are ready to go. Now I've gone ahead and I've pressed my rows actually one direction opposite for each one. So like for example, this is the top row. Okay, and so what I've done is I've pressed everything towards the last block. Then the next row, okay, next row, I press everything towards the first block. Now the reason I'm doing that is because we've got so many seams we're working with, and you can really end up having too much bulk, and it can kind of push things out of alignment. So the reason I did that is so that those seams do nest up nicely against each other, so I can easily come in, and I'm only putting a pin in on those seams because I want to make sure they do just sit nice and tight together. And it's going to make sure your points are really clean. So let me put some pins in that. Because some of these spots where you look at that you've got all those corners coming together and those corners are coming in and lining up with the next row, it really can put a lot of bulk in that area for it. Now, when I did go ahead and do my pressing on that to send the seams going whichever direction they need to go, depending on the row, I did go ahead and I used some steam in that. Like I said, I personally like steam. If you don't, that's okay, not a problem. I personally do like steam to give it a really nice solid press. If you find that you've got a lot of bulk, you can also consider if you've got a heat press. The heat press works great to go ahead and really put that pressure into locking down that, and you can use a heat press dry or with steam depending upon which one you have, whether it does it on its own or maybe you miss the fabric slightly if you want to have that steam aspect. Just be sure, you know, with that you're taking caution. This light color of the icicle, you want to make sure it's you know, if you're using the steam, you're not steaming for too long. We certainly don't want to add any steam and burn looking into it. So I haven't had that problem, but you know, it happens sometimes if we leave our irons and pressing on for too long. So I've gone ahead and put my 4 rows, I got them 2 by 2s together. I'm going to go back in on my 1/4 inch is what I'm doing on my seams. Again, we're leaving everything on the 1/4 inch. And even though I'm using some darker fabric, I've got the ocean, I'm still going with my lighter color Aurifil thread. I usually leave my thread the same consistently throughout the whole piecing process. And so it blends nicely with our light colors, and I don't have any problems with it showing through on my darks. So we're all good there. So I'm gonna go ahead, and the first thing I'm gonna do is take my rose through. I'm gonna stop as I get close to my pins, pull my pins out, and go ahead. And also I do slow down when I get to those really bulky seams. I want my machine to feed through nice and easy. I don't want to have to fight any of that bulk. So let the machine do the work. You don't want to have to be pulling and yanking on it by any means. You want your machine to be able to feed that through consistently for you. So I'm going to let mine do that for me. My foot's going to lift. I'm going to slide this next one right on in behind the first. There we go. Take that pin out, feed on down, pull my pin. Just gonna make sure this last bit is aligned nicely. Pull my pin. All right. And that puts two of them together. So literally at this point, I've just got that center to put together. So because again, we're working with so much bulk, I'm gonna go ahead and press my seams. And at this point, it really is not a worry as far as which direction you're gonna press with these, because these seams are not meeting each other. So I'm just gonna go ahead, just leave that right there for the moment, because I'm gonna be using it right away. I'm gonna go ahead and press this though to the ocean color, just because it's dark. Otherwise, I've got some of that icicle that would be showing through, and I don't want my ocean to show through on that icicle. But I do love those colors next to it. I'm just giving a little bit of steam in there, not a whole lot. Doesn't need a bunch. Okay, so there is one. And once I get this one done, I'll show you just how that looks as we lay those up. I've still got some heat in my mat, a little bit of steam underneath it. So I'm just gonna go ahead and give it a good press. Okay. So next up, I'm just putting these, my iron's heating back up from me asking it to give all that steam to me. And so next up, we're just literally putting that center together, okay? So everything is coming together really nicely. And because I chose to press my seams on those rows in the opposite directions, it's gonna allow me just to nest these right on in and butt them up together. So I'm gonna go ahead and put in a couple pins here, just because I want those points to be really good and clean. Let me do that. One more. Because when you're working with all that bulk, they can certainly start to add up. So if you can have those seams pointing the opposite direction, it's going to save you a lot of heartache trying to get everything pressed through. Okay. Let's go ahead and send that through. This is going to be my center of the block that I'm now putting together. Stay consistent with your 1/4 inch seams. Pull my pin. And as I'm getting to that center, there's a lot of bulk there. So just take your time with it. Let your machine feed through it. You don't want to pull. You don't want to distort how it's laying. Give it its time. And this is where it's also important to always have a good needle in your machine, a good fresh needle, because when you get those really bulk areas, those needles that are nice and sharp are going to be able to feed through that real easy. And anything that can be a less headache on us to get through them is always a better option. Okay. I'm going to give this one quick press, and then you're going to see how that pinwheel turns out. All right. Get the heat in there. Let's open it up. And I'm just going to fold that back. It's not going to matter which direction I'm going because it's the same all the way around in my pinwheel. Just give it a little bit of pressing with my hand to get it to lay down. It's got the heat, it's already got some of the steam in there. And you can always, if you want to bring over like a starch, to put a little starch in there, you can always do that. My fabrics, I do pre-starch them. So I don't normally add more on throughout the process, because when it's all said and done and it's time to put my rows together, I'll add some more starch in at that point as I make everything lie down. And there's your pinwheel. All done. Super easy. It is a lot of small pieces, but it goes together very quickly, and you're doing the same thing over and over, so it makes it very easy to get through it. So your pinwheel pieces, you've got one up here on the side, you've got one down here on this side. You've only got 2 of them to make, so get started. You'll have them together in no time, and you'll be ready for the next block to come along. See you soon.